What's up, NFL fans? Welcome to another episode of Four Down Territory. As always, I'm your host, Luke Easterling, joined by Doug Farrar, editor of Touchdown Wire, genius of the X's and O's as he is around here. Doug, after a wild start to this offseason, right? Free agency trades all over the place. Seems like things have quieted down just a little bit. I know those are famous last words, so I'm sure another blockbuster is right around the corner. But now we're starting to get into the home stretch of the pre-draft process, right? We've got a little bit a month from when we're recording this exactly until draft day, when that 3-day event kicks off. And we're going to start with a draft subject that is, I don't know if it's near and dear to my heart, but boy, does it frustrate me when we have these pre-draft narratives that come up about players that just have no basis in reality or the film or any sort of factual evidence. Unfortunately, one of the biggest things we see every time there's an athletic black quarterback, we have this intelligence conversation, right? We talk about football IQ. Can he read defenses and all this nonsense? We saw it with Lamar Jackson. We saw it with Justin Fields.
I was going to say, like Justin Fields, who played in the most complicated passing game in the NCAA last year and wasn't smart enough to handle it, allegedly. Right.
It's ridiculous, Doug. And another narrative that seems to be cropping up this year is another frustrating one that bothers me a lot. And it centers around Kayvon Thibodeaux, right? The edge rusher, pass rusher extraordinaire from Oregon. Incredible player. Seemed like the guy who was destined to be the number one pick really from the time he came on the field for the Ducks in college. And now, we're a month away from the draft and we're starting to hear all of these, unnamed sources, rumors, reports about the fact that he doesn't have enough effort and doesn't care about the game enough. And obviously Kayvon's a guy that's been very vocal about his interests outside of football. I'm going to get to another example of why this is ridiculous when I get a chance to speak on this. But, what's your take on this whole thing centered around Kayvon's effort or his motor or whatever? I know you've had a chance to look at the actual film and see the on-field product. What do you see in terms of Thibodeaux's effort, and is there any credence to this at all?
Yeah, Luke, I got all weird and I went back and watched his actual tape, which, that's...
How could you?
I guess so.
What is that supposed to do?
Yeah, I've gone back. I've actually watched a lot of his tape in the last week because just talking to people, and I have a little cabal of people, and we're all kind of confused by it. So I watched a lot of his tape in the last week with this particular narrative in mind, and I have yet to see a sustained number of snaps in any game where I think to myself, yeah, he's out there gold working. I think there are times when he gets locked up against blocks because he doesn't yet know how to use his hands against them. And Luke, you know this. Some of the best edge rushers coming out of college don't know how to use their hands yet. It's why a lot of guys take a year to really fit in. You have your Nick Bosa's and, Alden Smiths and whatever, but those tend to be the exception rather than the rule. So it's fairly common, and there are reasons, so you watch the tape. I've seen him lock up tight ends in coverage against Oregon State and then speed to pressure the quarterback. Like 3 effort plays in one. I've seen him start off ball and blast through the line to pressure on a blitz. For the most part, I think he's doing his best out there. And when we get to these narratives, and it was with Lamar, he should be a receiver, and, Fields isn't intelligent, and blah, blah, this, and I know the one you're going to talk about. I think what happens is one guy talks to an unnamed coach, scout, executive, that writer, that reporter puts it out there, and everyone just grabs onto it and says, oh, I'm just going to take that piece, that analysis, not do any of my own analysis, and throw it out there and see if I can get the same views / clicks that the other guy got. And then it just becomes this game of telephone, this endless game of telephone where nobody's actually doing any analysis on it. They're just all saying Kayvon Thibodeaux doesn't care about the game, or Justin Fields isn't intelligent, or Lamar Jackson can't, play in an NFL offense. Have you seen Bobby Petrino's play? We can say all you want about Petrino, but have you seen that guy's playbooks? So I think, going past Thibodeaux locally to the more global thing, I think it's a lot of people who aren't doing the work and just want to take the pull quote and amplify it to their own benefit. I don't think it's any more complicated than that. It's shameful. Well, we should be doing better, but we're not, and that's kind of where it is.
Yeah, I mean, the example that I wanted to give is a few years back, I got a chance to go out to Houston while Myles Garrett was training out there for that draft. And I got to spend a day with him. We went around College Station. We hung out in Houston a bit. And and we just didn't really talk about football very much. We talked about how much he loves dinosaurs and how he almost picked Ohio State because their paleontology program was fantastic, and how much he was passionate about learning more and maybe even going into that field once he's done in football. We talked about music. We talked about barbecue. He brought 3 of his closest friends that week, so we talked about those relationships growing up, and we played soccer on the soccer field at Texas A&M. We didn't play any football. He hit the heavy bag a little bit in the gym, some boxing, but it was just so funny. He talked so much leading up to that draft about how much he loved poetry, and like there's all these different things.
Poetry? Oh no!
Right.
Never
I mean, he went number 1. He's one of the most dominant pass rushers in the league, and it's just hilarious to me every time we see anyone. And again, I'm not doubting that there's people in the league that still have this idea that in order to be successful at this level, you have to care about football more than anything and everything else in your life, to the great detriment of everything else in your life, or you can't be successful. You don't love it enough. You're not willing to sacrifice what it takes. And I just call BS on that, man. Again, Myles Garrett is one example, but Thibodeaux, like you said, the film doesn't back it up. And I hope that as we continue to move forward, that there are fewer and fewer people in the league that feel this way about players. I hope there are more and more players like Garrett and Thibodeaux who continue to smash this ridiculous narrative that you have to be 100% all about football. You have to be locked in and focused when it's time to be locked in and focused on that. But to have all these other interests and want to do important things beyond the game, I think is good. It's healthy. And I think more and more really, really good prospects and players talking about it and being open about that is a good thing for both the sport and just humanity in general. And I hope that continues to be the way things move.
Well, a couple things. I don't think it's as complicated as Thibodeaux has outside interests. I think it's one football writer copy pasting. There are questions about Thibodeaux's effort, and the next person copy paste, because you see the same thing in every single article. They don't change it. They don't say why. It's just, oh, it's this. A Seattle guy, fortunate enough to be in the locker room a lot when the Legion of Boom was the Legion of Boom. Those guys all had outside it. Michael Bennett's brain is like a kaleidoscope. He was in Tampa too, so you know this.
Yeah, absolutely.
I seem to remember that those guys were pretty good, despite their outside interests. I seem to remember that working.
Richard Sherman wasn't bad. He was
okay. Yep. So yeah.
All right, moving on to free agency, Doug. Obviously, we've had a ton of signings. Really, the first and second waves at this point are starting to die down. Which new player with his new team do you think is going to bring the greatest dividends in the 2022 season?
I have to go with Von Miller to Buffalo. I know some people say, well, he's early 30s, they overpaid. I don't think they did. Outside of some minor offensive line issues, the Bills are about as perfectly stacked as any NFL team. But you saw it in the playoffs. Lack of a consistent pass rush really showed up in the divisional round against the Chiefs. General manager Brandon Beane knows that his Super Bowl window is just beginning. And he has 2 really good, potentially good young edge rushers in Greg Rousseau and Boogie Basham. But there's a major difference between young defenders learning their craft and a guy like Miller, who already has 1 Super Bowl MVP in his quiver from 50. And had he been the MVP in this most recent Super Bowl, nobody would have batted an eye. It's either him, Stafford, or Aaron Donald. So 6-year, $120 million deal, $51.435 million guaranteed. I think it's basically a 3-year out. And in return, he gives the Bills a thunderous response to a 2020 weakness. He also, by the way, holds his own pass rushing camps in the offseason. So all those young guys from the Bills are going to be out there and learning from Uncle Von, and that's just going to make everyone better. And if we, look back to one signing, if the Bills win the Super Bowl, 57, we're going to look back, I would bet, and go, oh, it was that Von Miller thing, because he once again makes the difference. Luke, what about you?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I was tempted to go with a similar addition, and I think what the Raiders did in bringing Chandler Jones to Vegas, I think could have a very similar impact. But I'm going to go with a young guy. I'm going to go with Marcus Williams, the safety coming from New Orleans, going to Baltimore. And because I think that secondary was such a huge problem for them and such a big reason why they didn't have the season they wanted to, particularly on defense. Corners weren't terrible, but the safety play, I think, was something that really had a negative impact on their entire season. And I think Williams is exactly what they need. And again, you could say how much, whether or not they overpaid a guy like that. That's just what it costs. He's 25 years old.
Yeah.
That's what it costs for a playmaking safety in this NFL. Guys who can do it all like he can, that you don't just find those every year. And again, we've talked about it before with Kyle Hamilton, the Notre Dame safety, and why he's worthy of the number one pick this year. Because we have to keep tired narratives, right? You got to throw out this narrative that safeties aren't worth whatever you think they are in today's NFL. Any defensive coordinator would tell you, if you find me a guy like Kyle Hamilton, find me a guy like Marcus Williams, I will use him in a way that makes him worth a number one overall pick, because those guys are rare. And
unless I'm Matt Patricia, but other than
that. And again, that's what frustrates us sometimes, right? And then again, it's not limited to the safety position. It's when there are players that could be better if given the opportunity, and the scheme is holding them back. I don't think that's going to happen in Baltimore. I think Marcus Williams is exactly what they need. He's going to make plays all over the field. Again, just 25 years old, and I think he'll be worth every penny.
Yeah, he'll be a nice addition. I mean, that safety group was a mash unit for a lot of the year, which didn't help. Yeah, that's a big addition there. And we'll go to the next question. And I have a replacement for Mr. Williams in New Orleans.
You do indeed. Now, going from guys who have already signed to guys who have yet to sign, of the remaining free agents that are still on the market, which player-team combination do you think would make the biggest bang on the field if it happens?
Well, I'll start with an exasperated question. Why is this guy still out there? Tyrann Mathieu to the Saints. They lost Williams, their primary safety and shot caller, and Dennis Allen's defense to the Ravens, as you said.
I just want to make it clear, as a Bucks guy, do not want him anywhere near the NFC South. Can we not do that, please? Marcus Williams leaving is a great thing. I don't want that spot filled. They can leave it open. It's fine.
Well, we'll see what happens. But they are now reduced to signing various Daniel Sorensens to try and bridge the gap. Ouch.
Yeah, exactly. That's fine.
You don't want to denigrate specific players, but come on. P.J. Williams and Malcolm Jenkins are decent options. And Matthew's kind of the modern Malcolm Jenkins to me. I see a lot of comps there. Mathieu went to LSU, born in New Orleans, would immediately provide that most important of defensive players, as we just discussed. The captain from 4 different positions: dime linebacker, box safety, free safety, slot defender. Saints play a ton of dime. And, Allen's the head coach. Chris Richard and Ryan Nielsen are the co-defensive coordinators. But it's going to be Allen's defense. It's a very aggressive up-front defense. A lot of stuff going on in coverage. Mathieu would perfectly glue that together, maybe at an even higher level than Williams did. I don't know what Matthew's looking for as far as money and location. I would imagine he'd be pretty happy in his old hometown. And if the money's right, I think the Saints should jump all over that.
Yeah, and think about it schematically, Doug. We've talked about it on here before. With the way they took away the Bucks on offense last year in particular by basically going double robber with both of those safeties, right? And just using it in not quite 2-man, but having those guys spy whoever they wanted, whoever the top target they thought would be on the play based on the pre-snap read, and just reading Brady and moving with it. That's how they were able to shut that down. And I think a guy like Tyrann Mathieu, obviously with those instincts, his intelligence, the way he understands how the game is played at such a high level and so quickly, being able to make decisions and read stuff, I think he'd be a perfect fit in that defense, and I would hate to see it again as a guy.
I can see why you would find that offensive. Your pick is one that I did some film study on this idea a couple weeks ago because it's really intriguing. This could be very interesting.
Yeah, it would be, and mine is Odell Beckham to Green Bay. It'll obviously take time and patience. He's going to have to recover from that ACL. We don't really know when he's going to be on the field, but I really can't think of a better place for him to land than in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers. They just traded away Devontae Adams. They lost Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who I think is a very underrated signing for Kansas City because of what he brings, the explosiveness to that offense after they lost Tyreek Hill. Obviously a huge need there when Allen Lazard is really your wide receiver one at this point. I mean, Beckham brings experience. He's still an explosive playmaker, which we saw through the second half of the season last year in Los Angeles. Had a touchdown catch in the Super Bowl before he got hurt. All of those things that I think Aaron Rodgers would really value, a veteran guy who has proven he can do it at a high level, and he won't have to develop anything in that guy except chemistry, right? I think once he's back to full strength, that offense could be really dangerous if he's the one replacing Devontae.
I guess this is the myth-busting episode of Four Downs because there's this sort of perception that he's a freelancer. You don't get that many reps in a Sean McVay offense if you don't follow the script. You don't freelance until you earn it. Cooper Kupp can freelance. You got to run the routes first. So I think it would be a great fit, yeah.
Now, to wrap up this week, Doug, we're going to move to the rules side of things, right? The competition committee is going to vote on 2 different proposals to potentially change the overtime rules, right? The owners' meetings are this week going on in Florida. The first proposal it was brought about by the Indianapolis Colts. It would give both teams an opportunity to score in overtime, even if the first team scores a touchdown, right? The second one is a little tricky, proposed by the Titans. It adds a little tweak in there where if the team scoring a touchdown on that first drive would go for 2 and make it and get a successful 2-point conversion, they could win that way without the other team having a chance to possess the ball. Now, do you support either of these proposals, or should we keep things the way they are, where scoring a touchdown on your first drive ends the game and the opponent has no chance to respond?
Well, we're recording this on Monday morning. I saw a clip of Mike Vrabel, the Titans head coach of the owners, because he wants overtime to be more like golf. I'm like, Mike, have a breakfast sandwich and calm down. I've said before that the current overtime scoring rules are ridiculous and reactive, put in place mostly because after the 2009 NFC Championship game, Brett Favre didn't go to the Super Bowl and everyone flipped out. Now the NFL considers changing the rules after the Bills had no chance to respond after the Chiefs' touchdown drive in the divisional round last year. This came up when the Patriots got to the Super Bowl over the Chiefs. The Chiefs didn't, the Chiefs had put in a request for a rule change a few years back. I think the Colts proposal is the way to go. I don't know what, Titan, no gimmicks, no codicils, no additional whatevers. Each team gets a chance to score in overtime, and if they both score to a new tie, it's sudden death from now on. I don't think it needs to be any more complicated than that.
No, I don't think so either. I agree with you, Doug. I mean, yes, defense is part of the game, and I get the argument that you are having a chance to win because you need to rely on your defense to stop them and give you the ball back. I agree with that to a point, but that's why you give both teams a chance to do both of those things, right? You give both teams a chance to possess the ball, both defenses a chance to play their part and get a stop. Everybody gets a shot on both sides of the ball, and I think while people who want to have an excuse for something always will, we talk about it with the college football playoff and how big it should be and all these other things, but I feel like that the way to limit those excuses would be to at least give both teams a chance to possess the ball.
Well, I always find it funny when people go back to that particular Chiefs-Bills game, the way Patrick Mahomes was playing and the way Josh Allen was playing. Oh, just play defense. Yeah, sure. Just, lift 800 pounds with one hand.
Why not? It's that simple. Just stop them. Just stop them, guys.
Whatever.
Well, that's going to do it for us this week. Thanks so much for joining us again. For Doug Farrar, I'm Luke Easterling, and we'll see you next week.